I beat Terraria by just fishing. In this playthrough, the only way I'll be able to get stuff is as follows. I'll be able to use items directly obtained from fishing, such as the frost legs or the reaver's shark, alongside crates and all the items these contain. These are going to be crucial for the run, as that'll be the only way I can obtain armor. The second way I'll be able to obtain items is via the fishing quests from the angler. For the most part, these items are ones that improve fishing speed and efficiency, such as the golden fishing rod and the angler set. And finally, I'm allowing myself to use drops from fished enemies. So this includes the 5 from the blood moon, plus Duke fish runs. For this run to work, I'll also need to start with a wooden fishing pole and the bug's net. I'm also, obviously allowing myself to catch bait, but to be used purely for fishing. I also have an encumbrings though, just to make sure I don't accidentally pick up stuff I shouldn't. Now looking back in hindsight, this run was a pretty stupid idea. As I got further in especially, I realized just how long some of the grinds would be, but you joined me at the very start of this, blissfully unaware, but I'd lie ahead. As they had no way of breaking blocks, to catch bait at first, I had to rely on catching dragon and butterflies. With no movement thus, I had to use slimes to lure them to me. I spent the next few days slowly collecting bait. Yeah, there wasn't a huge amount to do at night. The next day, out of desperation, I veg into the desert in the hopes of catching scorpions. This showed me how I'm essentially trapped in the forest biome until I can at least get some maneuverability items. With the little date I had, I decided to start fishing. There are a few direct things we can fish up that are useful, like the frog's legs and the balloon pufferfish. Although with our low fishing power, these are going to be very rare. What we really want are crates. These have a 1 in 10 chance to be fished up regardless of fishing power. Alongside blocks, bars, and potions, these contain crucial accessories. But we know right now the sailfish boots, and I soon hardly had a bottle. These alongside blocks will essentially allow us to escape the forest biome. My low fishing power progress at first was very slow. This low fishing power also means the vast majority of crates we're going to get are going to be wooden ones. As the higher your fishing power, the more likely you are to get a better tier crate. Nice. That's very good actually. I think that's like a 1 in 40 drop, so that's very good for our second grade. With the sailfish boots on, catching bait got a lot faster. Over the next few days, I decimated the local insect population. And with a lot more bait in hand, I headed back to the pond, but not for long as I got through the bait I had very quickly. I didn't get very much. So it was back again to bug hunting. The dream item to get right now would be the falcon blade, which has a 6% chance to drop from the iron crate, which to be fair I think is actually a very decent sword for the early game. At this point I was starting to get some ores and bars. It's worth mentioning that ores are only useful to me in terms of blocks to be placed, as it won't be possible to craft a furnace during this run. I did think about allowing myself to use naturally placed furnaces, but I didn't think this was really in the spirit of the run. Ooh, hardy saddle. I think that's mostly useless. Golden crates do have a 1 in 8 chance, I think, of containing a life crystal, which is going to be the only way we can permanently increase our health. After days and days of fishing, there it is, finally. I finally got the tsunami in a bottle. With my improved maneuverability, I made my way to the ocean biome. There are 3 arsons I work from here: the sawtooth shark, the reaver shark, and the swordfish. They're all obtained directly from fishing. The most crucial of these is the reaver shark pickaxe, as well as allowing me to break locks, it'll also double up as a weapon. The unique ocean fishes aren't super rare, so it shouldn't be too long before I get them. The ocean's large volume of water also increases fishing power, so it should make things a bit faster. Nice, and I've got that quite quickly. After getting some crits, I made my way to the jungle. I'm going here for 3 main reasons. The first is that now I've got a pickaxe, I can break jungle bushes. This is one of the fastest sources of bait in the game. The second is a fiberglass fishing pole, a huge upgrade on my current rod. There's a 19% chance to obtain one from opening a jungle crate. The third, and certainly most important reason why I'm going to the jungle next, is to get a workbench. You see, jungle crates have a 1 in 3 chance of containing bamboo, and blue witch I'm used to craft a workbench. As far as I'm aware, this is the only way I can make one. I can't stress enough how important this is going to be for the run. I honestly think that if jungle crates didn't have a chance to randomly contain bamboo, this run wouldn't be possible. After catching a lot of bait, I began fishing. Little did I know that this would turn out to be one of the longest grinds of the run. Although, he got off to a pretty good start. Nice, first try as well. After 4 hours, I could finally make a workbench. Alongside this, I've made an anvil, a chest, and started on some island. And with that, I went back to the jungle to catch more bait. I then took us to the ocean biome where I got the sawtooth shark. It was then back to the jungle to continue the search for the fibergrass fishing pole. The second jungle trait we got was a useless staff of regrowth. With the bars I'd got from the crates, I made a reinforced fishing pole, plus 2 more armor pieces. This increase in fishing power should make it more likely we fish out the jungle crate. The third jungle crate doubled our staff of regrowth count, and the fourth tripled it. Not too bad, especially with the reforge. After opening 2 more unsuccessful jungle crates, I got a bit of luck. Nice, there we go. Well, it's not the best reforge, but we'll definitely take it. Not long after, I wondered if we were going to get back-to-back items there. 2 days and 4 jungle crates later. Finally. Yeah, that took a while. With our new rod, I headed to the desert for the next stage of the plan. The goal now is to do fishing quests. I'll be doing at least 30 to guarantee myself the bunny mount, angler set, on the golden fishing rod. On top of these, there are several other items which would be very nice to get. Most importantly, the golden bug net and the fish hook. But before I can start all this, I'm going to get a magic conch. Hence why I've come to the desert. You see, in order to get quests done quickly, the plan is to create a new world, then use the conch to teleport to the oceans until we find the angler. And then if the quest he offers is a relatively easy one, then we'll do it. If we're fast, and doing things this way will be a big time save, compared to doing 1 quest per day in a single world. This method works as the amount of quests you've completed are stored by character and not by world. After getting the frog's leg, we got our first oasis crate, which funnily enough contained the scarab fishing rod. Well, that was definitely a lot faster than the fiberglass one. I kept fishing, and on the second oasis crate, I got what we wanted. With the conch in hand, it was time to start fishing quests. I created a new world, went to the ocean, found the angler, started the quest, went fishing, got the fish, and on my first quest, got the fish hook. It was a strong start, there was still a long way to go in terms of fishing quests. Before starting more quests, so I crafted a toilet for the 5 extra fishing power. Continuing the lucky streak on quest 7, I got the golden bug net. This will allow us to catch underworld bait and hence fish and lava later in the run. On quest 16, I got a life crystal from a golden trait, putting my health at 120. This is also good as it's a condition for a blood moon to spawn. Nice, that's a good item to get. After a very successful first 30 quests, I got the golden fishing rod. With my new gear, I made my way to the snow biome. There are two main things which I've come here for. First, the frost daggerfish, which are a direct catch, and the ice blade from a crate. God, this is so much faster. Within minutes, I had both. Although I stuck around a bit longer to get more frost daggerfish. The Wall of Flesh is the only pre-hard mode boss I turned to fight, where I think the daggerfish would be good at taking out the hungry. It was then off to the corruption. Only item I want from her is a shadow orb. My bottomless water bucket came in handy here as there was no naturally generated lake in the corruption. Aided by the light from the shadow orb, I went behind it down to the underworld. With the elevation in place, I embarked on the last major crate grind of the run. From the sky crates, we need the Star Fury, the fledgling wings, and the shiny red balloon. Sky crates, 50% chance to obtain 50 to 100 sky blocks. This is also one of our best ways of obtaining lots of blocks. The shiny red balloon and the Star Fury came in the first few crates. I then fished for a long time in the hopes of getting the fledgling wings. I got a few more much-needed life crystals. Having run out of crate and fishing potions, I had to do some more quests. After running out of potions again, I was kind of considering giving up, as the fledgling ones are good, but not super good. However, I decided to do a few more quests. If I didn't get the wings using the potions I'd got from these, I'd move on. I think we must be getting close to the maximum fishing power here. The best fishing rod, best bait, full angle set, all the accessories. It's raining and I'm on the toilet. With my gargantuan fishing power, the sky crates are flying in. The question was, would one of them contain the fledgling wings? With my potions all gone, I headed to the ocean biome to find out. And on the very last crate, I got them. Wings in hand, I made a brief visit to the underworld, where I get a bit of lava fishing and got the bottomless lava bucket. As I now had a light source in the form of lava, I thought I'd try my hand at making a base. It turned out, well, about as well as I thought. This is atrocious. However, before I could make any improvements on the base, a more pressing matter occurred. A blood moon. Two unique enemies can be fished up during a pre-hard mode blood moon. These are the Wandering Eye Fish and the Zombie Merman. They each have a 12.5% chance to drop the Vampire Frog Staff. This is the main item you want. This is our only available summon pre-hard mode. The Chum Caster and the Money Trough are also a bit useful, but not essential. They also both drop the Blood Rainbow, which I think is a pretty good weapon, but useless to us if we've got no way of getting ours. As the night wore on, it was looking increasingly likely that it would end with me empty-handed. And apart from a few chum buckets, it did. However, only a few days after, when fishing in the desert for a Bast statue, I got a similar message. And from the first fish of the night, we got one. And a second. Shortly after our third Vampire Frog Staff, we also got the Bloody Tear, the Blood Moon Spawner, which is going to come in useful in hard mode. Speaking of hard mode, it was now time to fight the Wall of Flesh. Using my water bucket to flood the underworld, I created an obsidian platform to run on. With this in place, it was time to begin the fight. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but if you'd been watching closely, you'd have seen how I've fished up a lot of bombfish. They can be fished up directly from any biome, so I've got quite a lot. The strategy is to use them alongside the frosty daggerfish to take out the hungry. Jan's bite was pretty easy, but only because I'm in normal mode. With the wall flash defeated, the first thing I set out to do in hard mode was to get an armor set. All pre-hard mode crates have now been replaced with their hard mode variants, which contain hard mode ores, but more importantly for us, bars as well. There are also a few new items to get, like the enchanted sundial and the anchor. The amount of potions I had was still depleted from the fledgling wings grind, so I had to do a few more quests for this. I think the anchor's a very average weapon, to be fair, although it probably just about outclasses what we have from pre-hard mode. A sundial, on the other hand, which actually skip one day a week, is going to come in very useful later in the run. A few days into hard mode, the first blood moon happened, which didn't go too well. After that unfortunate interlude, it was back to fishing. I was getting reasonably close to having enough bars to craft the orichalcum set. I think these were the best ones. Although I was once again out of potions, so it was back to the quest grind. Homing in on full orichalcum armor, I decided to head to the corruption. I'm here for the Toxicarp. It's a hard mode exclusive, extremely rare fish from corruption biomes, which I think is going to be one of the best weapons for us in this playthrough. It's a ranged weapon but doesn't use ammo, has a fast fire rate and inflicts poison on enemies. After fishing up a large shoal of clubberfish, I got one. I then continued fishing up crates for the fun and few orichalcum bars, but not before getting the Zephyr fish. With my new pet, I opened the last of the crates and crafted full orichalcum armor. Something else to know is during the grind for armor, I also almost doubled my health and was now sitting at a healthy 300 hit points. It was now time for the next stage of the run, the hard mode blood moon. Using the bloody tear I got from pre-hard mode, I got things started. There are 3 new enemies which can now be fished up: the Hemogoblin Shark, the Blood Eel, and the Dread Nautilus mini-boss. The 2 main items we're going for are the Sanguine Staff, which is a 50-50 drop from the Dread Nautilus, and the Dripla Crippler, a 12.5% drop from the Blood Eel. The Hemerax would also be useful, with shots from the Blood Eel and the Hemogoblin Shark. This is because it can destroy corruption altars, which we'll need for the Meta spawn, and will save us valuable hard mode bars. Speaking of the Hemerax, I got it on my first Blood Eel kill. The only other drop of note from the night was a bloody tear from a wandering eyefish, which I used the next evening to do it all over again. The first blood eel I fought was again generous. He dropped the Dripla Crippler. I think this is pretty good. It's got very high base damage at least. Although the person I'm a huge fan of flare mechanics, but I reckon I'll use it a bit. This left just the Sanguine Staff to get. The Dread Nautilus isn't the boss of Fort much. It was a bit harder than expected, especially given my early hard mode gear. It's a fight which I found out becomes a lot easier when you learn the boss's patterns. As the fight went on and the night drew to a close, it became clear this was a kill I really needed to get. The Dread Nautilus also has a 50% chance of dropping the bloody tear, which currently we didn't have. So if we died, or got a kill but didn't get the bloody tear or the Sanguine Staff, and it was going to have to be a wait for the next blood moon to occur naturally. And that's exactly what happened. Whilst waiting for the next blood moon, I decided to do some tasks I'd been putting off. The first was to go lava fishing. Using my bottomless lava bucket, I made a lake at spawn. The item we want from this is a superheated blood, which spawns the lava shark mouth, who's going to come in crucial later. There's also the obsidian swordfish, which is a high damage but low range spear. I think it's okay, but as for only really killing bosses, I'm not sure how much use it'll be. I got the lava shark mount pretty quickly, and as mentioned, it's going to find very useful later. Next, I went to the desert to finally try and get a bast statue. This gives +5 defense when placed. Nice. Long gone are the days sufficient for like 20 minutes for one biome grade. After this, it was onto the underground snow biome to get the scaly truffle mount. I then went to the dungeon and fought Skeletron. The only reason I have to do this is because it's a condition for the cultists to spawn later on. The following night, a blood moon spawned. Currently, 0-1 to the Dread Nautilus was straight into a rematch. The fight was a pretty chaotic one. I felt like I could die any moment, but I think I was knowing the patterns of the Dread Nautilus a bit better. On pretty low health, I just about managed to defeat it, although unfortunately nothing dropped. My second attempt was unsuccessful, and we finished the night empty-handed. As he had no bloody tear, I just AFK'd at base, using the sundials every 7 days to skip a day. It wasn't long before we got another blood moon, although the only thing of note that happened during this one was I got a bloody tear from a zombie merman. So on the next night, I was fighting the blood moon, yet again. I got a bloody tear from the first Dread Nautilus. Just over halfway through the night, I fished up a second. It was going pretty well, but I was a bit worried I wouldn't finish the fight before morning. However, with ample time left, I got the kill, and the sanguine staff with it. With all the items from the blood moon, it was time to move on to our next goal. Duke Fishron. Locked behind the Duke are the best items available to us this playthrough, so it makes sense for him to be the first boss we attempt in hard mode. You might be wondering, given I struggled with the blood moon mini-boss, how I'm going to manage a fight with a late hard mode boss with my current gear. Well, the plan is something I've hinted at. It all hinges on the lava shark mount. You see, although being useless on land, it has a speed of 73 in the water, which is one of the fastest anywhere in the game. My plan is to fight Duke Fishron in the ocean, using the lava shark's fast speed to dodge his attacks. Now, by no means is a lava shark a cheat code to victory. This is still going to be a very hard battle, but I think at least it will give us a fighting chance. Taking the truffle worms I gathered to the ocean, I began my first attempt. From the crates I'd been fishing up, I fortunately had a lot of shining gills potions, which helped with seeing Fishron's attacks, and also not drowning. Duke Fishron has 2 attacks in his first phase. Firstly, he'll shoot detonating, damaging bubbles at you, but these can be destroyed by the player. Secondly, he'll spawn sharknadoes, and crucially, 2 branded locations. These deal massive damage, and if I touch one, it's essentially fight over. A minute or so into the fight, I was pleased by how well the dodging worked on the shark map, but I was less pleased with how much damage it was doing. The Dribbler Crippler arguably has a better DPS, but unfortunately it doesn't work underwater. The tricky thing about the Toxicart is its projectiles don't stay in a straight line for very long before going up, so it means I have to get quite close to Duke Fishron, which is what caused my first attempt to come to a very abrupt end. Okay. No, I think it's doable. I think if we'd have learned the patterns better. Cautiously optimistic after my first run, I decided to do some renovations. Making the ocean bigger to give me more space to dodge attacks can only help me. Funnily enough, this wouldn't be the first time I blew up an ocean in this run. I then used my bottomless water bucket to cause mass sea level rise and got ready for the second fight. I'd done a few test runs on a different world and thought I'd got a grip of his attacks a bit better. I made sure to time my movements so that he did his detonating bubble attack on the far left of the ocean and his Sharknado attack on the far right. This made the fight more predictable and hence the attacks easier to dodge, but also a bit boring to watch, so I'll speed this pass up a bit. A few minutes in, we'd got him to second phase. Here he now spins alongside his detonating bubble attack, and also spawns Cthulhu Nados instead of Sharknados. The main difference, apart from doing more damage, is their homing, which in some ways makes it easier. As with good timing and positioning, more so than the first phase, you could determine whether Cthulhu Nados spawn. I was again timing this so they'd spawn on the outer edges of the ocean. With Fishrun having just over a third of his health left, I made a few sloppy mistakes. And another budding with a Cthulhu Nado pretty much finished me off. Despite ending in failure, this attempt showed Fishrun is definitely possible with the current gear we have. If I could just tidy my movement up a bit, we should be successful. But attempt 3 unfortunately ended in a similar fashion to the last one. After a collision with a Cthulhu Nado, I quickly died. Attempt 4 was going pretty well as I got into second phase, although visibility was lowering as it became night. We were close to that Cthulhu Nado though. Despite being in a strong position with Duke Fisher on just on 4,000 health, the thrum had also unfortunately ended death. But not before Fish Run. Nice, and the flare rom as well. After somehow managing to die post-fight, I went down to the ocean floor to pick up the spoils. Getting the flare of burst is perfect, as it will massively speed up future fights. We still need the Tempest staff and the reasonably rare Fishrong wings. The next fight was a breeze, and from it we picked up the Tempest staff. It was now just a case of grinding out kills until we got the wings. Although I made a brief stop in the corruption to destroy an altar. This is a requirement for the mech bosses to spawn. Still without Fishron wings, I had to yet again return to the underground mushroom biome. However, on our first attempt back, we got them. So in terms of gear now, we've pretty much got the best we can get. We could maybe go for titanium armor, but to be fair, I think it's debatable whether it's actually better than orichalcum. Armor aside, it was now time for the mechanical bosses. As I won't be able to craft the mech boss spawners, or get them from a drop, I'm just going to have to, well, wait. Each night there's a 1 in 10 chance for a mech boss to spawn that you haven't defeated yet. Whereas for the next few days, once again, AFK in base, using the sundial to speed up time gradually. Until, with my flare on, the next bosses should be relative for easy fights, but we'll see. Luckily, my assumption was right, as my post-fish from weapons made light work of the destroyer. It was now but to wait it, until I got a message informing me that Skeleton Prime was on his way. Like the destroyer, this was another fairly straightforward fight. With just the twins to go, it was back to the waiting room one last time. Until after not too long, I got a very welcome message. Looking back at the footage, I realized I forgot to use any potions that misfired. Although the end it didn't really matter, as this was another fairly straightforward one. With all 3 mech bosses defeated, it was straight to the jungle. In some remaining bomb fish I had, I carved out an arena in the jungle, ready to fight Plantera. After this was done, I went and found a bulb, drank my potions, and started the fight, currently unaware at this point of a big mistake I'd made. The first fight against Plantera ended disastrously, but this was because my arena was too close to the surface, and hence Plantera had enraged when I was fighting her. Not wanting to go to the effort of building a whole new arena, I found a second bulb near a minecart track and decided to use that for the second fight. That went a lot better than I expected. Despite a 0 preparation, this turned out quite well. And after a pretty short amount of time, Plantera was defeated. Now, unfortunately here, I had no choice but to break the rules of the run. I did briefly explore ways to get into the jungle temple without the key, but I pretty quickly came to the conclusion that with my current items, this just wasn't possible, and I'd have to pick up the temple key from Plantera. So I suppose, to answer the question this video proposed, can I beat the game by just fishing? The answer is no, I can't. Thank you very much for watching. Although, maybe I can. Well, if I add an asterisk or two. With the asterisks added, I continued my way through the temple to find Golem. Now this is a fight I'm a little bit concerned about, especially with the buffs Golem's been given in recent patches. So far, just having the flare on has made up for a lack of health, good accessories, and good potions. The warriors are we taking way too much damage to sustain myself due to the enclosed nature of the fight. However, on my first attempt, things went better than expected, and it was only a clumsy collision with spikes on the roof that led to my eventual downfall. After removing the roof spikes, I started my second attempt. After a very close fight, I just about got the kill. After this, it was straight to the dungeon to fight the lunatic cultist. I've never had too much trouble with this fight, so I wasn't that concerned about it. My strategy was to never get too close to the cultist and just let the homing bubbles from the flare on do the work. The strategy was broadly working, although I had a few close calls towards the end of the fight. As I've been a bit careless with targeting the correct cultist, things started to get a bit chaotic, and the battle turned into a bit of a bullet hell. But again, like the golem fight, I just about prevailed. The first pillar I took on was the nebula one. I died a lot and I had to resort to just dipping in and out of the zone, getting a few things to spawn, then going back in. After a few minutes of throwing myself on the pillar, I had a quiet low, and with that the first of the 4 pillars was down. It was then to the vortex pillar where I played a similar game, except I died more. For the most part I was just skirting the edges, picking a few enemies off at a time. After the vortex was down, I made my way to the solar pillar. I've lost the footage for this one, but perhaps for the best as I just choosed it. Speaking of cheese, the Stardust pillar didn't cause me too many problems. With the final pillar down, it was then time for the Moon Lord. This is a fight I haven't done too recently, so this first fight is probably going to be more about getting used to his patterns and forming a strategy for future ones. One thing I did know though, was I'd have to use the speed of the fish from wings to avoid the phantasmal death ray, as I had no dash or any other way of avoiding it. Not long into the fight, it was clear I was just taking so much damage from all the stuff flying around. And a final clumsy collision with the eye finished me off. That hasn't gone great. The fight ended quickly. Despite being able to dodge the death ray, I was just taking so much damage from the phantasmal bolts and spears. The conclusion from all this was, at the very least, I needed some more survivability. So it was back to fishing, to get more heart crystals, more potions, and maybe push for titanium armor. However, it was unlikely that these changes alone would make the difference. I'd also have to come with a new strategy, but we'll get into that in a bit. After a monster fishing session, I'd replenished my potions and increased my health. It was then back to the dungeon to fight the cultist. The new, or semi-plans for the Moon Lord is to exploit the fish room ring's virtual speed as in fight the boss going up and down instead of side to side. The idea of this is to use the greatest speed we have going up to more avoid the phantasmal spears and bolts. It didn't work at all. I think our lack of health, potions and accessories is just really starting to show. After the second Moon Lord disaster class, it had become clear that simply relying on our fish from winds to dodge attacks was not going to be enough. We needed to go back to the drawing board and come up with a different strategy. After spending some time in a test world, I formed a plan. The first steps of it required blowing up the ocean and getting a bumblebee tuna. Let me explain. As I had no dash or teleport, I needed a way to travel at speed consistently to help me avoid the phantasmal bolts and spears. The need for this took me back to the Lava Shark Mount, with its extremely fast speed and water. Obviously, for the Moon Lord fight, we were no longer restricted to the ocean, so the plan was to build a long bridge and submerge it slightly in water. Except that I realized we didn't have to use water, as the Lava Shark Mount has a speed of 72 in all liquids. This means we could use honey, and in doing so benefit from the increased regeneration it gives. However, to do this realistically, we'd need the bottomless honey bucket. There's a 25% chance to obtain this from the angler, after giving him a bumblebee tuna. Being of the Lava Shark Mount should help us outrun most of the Moon Lord's attacks, but we still need a way to deal with the phantasmal death rays. In testing, I found these could be dodged using the magic Conch's teleport. Now normally, the Conch will teleport to the ocean biome that's furthest away, so on repeated uses, it will teleport to alternating oceans. However, during testing, I found the fight was a lot easier when the conch was made just to teleport to a single ocean biome. This feat can be achieved by invalidating all possible blocks to spawn on in one of the ocean biomes. In reality, the easiest way to do this was to simply flood it, as the conch needs a solid block to teleport to. Alright, so there we go, we've done it. With the single teleport achieved, it was now time to get the bottomless honey bucket. There's a 1 in 41 chance of the angler giving you a bumblebee tuna quest. And then upon completion, a 1 in 4 chance of giving the bottomless honey bucket, meaning there's an effective 1 in 164 chance to get it per quest. making this a bit of the grind. On quest number 26, you got the first one. Which unfortunately wasn't successful, so it was back to the quest grind. Quest 45 gave us our second bumblebee tuna, giving us the boss and the sunny bucket. We've been pretty fortunate with this grind. It could have been a lot worse given the odds. Scraping together all the blocks I had, I then started work on building the sky bridge. After filling it up with honey, it was then time to fight the cultist again. With the pillars down, I began the third attempt at the Moon Lord, putting a new plan into action. It got up to a bad start as I fumbled the death ray dodge. However, I landed the second till I started to get more into the rhythm of things. The speed of the lava shark mount was definitely helping dodge some of the phantasmal bolts and spheres. However, taking a hit from the first death ray and having to drink a health potion so soon had pretty much written off the fight, and I was unfortunately slowly whittled down by the phantasmal bolts. I started attempt 4, well aware that just one missed timed teleport could end the run. My timing had to be pretty much perfect, and for the most part it wasn't too bad, as I started to slowly chip away at the Moon Lord's health. For the first time in a run-in, and took out one of the hands. As I went through more cycles, I found myself dodging more of the pesky phantasmal bolts. And it had got to the point that with optimal movements, I was only taking around 30 or 40 damage between each phantasmal death ray. This was pretty sustainable given the regeneration I was getting from the honey. Several minutes later, I took out the central eye. This changes the fight a bit, as first we'll no longer have to deal with dodging the phantasmal death rays, and will only teleport back when we reach the end of the sky bridge. As long as we maintain a fast horizontal speed, the true eyes of Cthulhu shouldn't pose too much of an issue. To lessen the damage I was taking, I was always trying to keep the Moon Lord to my left. However, the downside of this was, damage done to the left hand was a lot slower, so much so that it wasn't really outpacing regeneration. To try and counteract this and do more damage, I started taking riskier moves, which, while allowing me to do more damage to the Moon Lord, also allowed the Moon Lord to do more damage to me, which ultimately ended the attempt. When trying to kill the second hand, I noticed the Moon Lord got most of his regenerations off when I was teleporting back to the left side of the ocean. To make sure this didn't happen as much, I extended the sky bridge, meaning there'd be bigger gaps between teleports and hence the Moon Lord would heal less. Attempt 5, here we go. At this point, I got the Moon Lord's attack patterns pretty much down, and I cleared the first hand and the middle eye without too many problems. We'd done all this before, but it was now time for the trickier part, the left hand. I found leaving the relative safety of the honey and flying up a bit more allowed the homing bubbles from my flare-on to do more damage to the remaining hand. Making the bridge longer also seemed to be working, as it didn't feel like the Moon Lord was healing as much. After several more minutes, we defeated the final hand, putting us for the first time in the second phase. This hopefully shouldn't be too bad. It should be a case of just dodging the true eyes of Cthulhu. after encountering way more trouble against Moonlord than I was expecting, we finally defeated him, and in doing so completed our challenge. Thank you very much for watching.